The following is a member of the Burke Reviews podcast family. BurkeReviews.com.
Hey everybody, welcome to Burke Reviews Movie Club. This week we're going to be talking about Brokeback Mountain, but first, I'm John Burke, and with me is Corey Starr.
Hello, hello.
And we are recording early on a Saturday, which is much later than we had planned. I think we were supposed to record on Wednesday.
And then I was sick.
You were sick, and I woke up with a sore throat this morning.
Oh no!
Pretty sure I am sick, but...
Get you some coldies.
Yeah, I actually already have some. I'm going to take one after this, but, eat one or whatever you call taking a cough drop. But, I've been, I'm on summer vacation, but I've been working the last 3 days with a small group of teachers, and we're, collaborating and planning stuff for next year, and, with my boss. And I don't know, I could have got germs from one of them. We've ate out a couple of times, so I've been, at a few restaurants, so I could have got sick there. And I was in a hospital last night when the sneezing started, so who knows if I got something walking through the hospital. But it's been a long week, and this movie I watched on Tuesday, I think, and with anticipation of recording on Wednesday, and then we did not get to do that. So this is the longest that I'm aware of that I've gone from watching the movie to talking about the movie. So hopefully we won't leave anything out. But how has your week been, Corey? You feeling better?
Yes, thank the heavens, because every time I've gotten sick since I've been working at this job, it's been the plague. But Bill and I both woke up not well on Wednesday, but and I'm such a mom. I make him take coldies and emergency and all kinds of things and drink plenty of water. So we ended up not getting the plague, which is great. But
yes.
Yeah, feeling much better. And I felt like a jerk because I had a good time last night. I finally got to see Pauly Shore.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, stand up. And I was he walked right by my husband. I wasn't even thinking. I was trying to get my husband out of the way because this is such a small comedy club. They don't even have a clear path to the stage. It's just packed with tables and chairs. And we were 10 feet from the stage. But Bill had to move so he could walk by. But it was really funny. And I think it's not really a lot of the comedy that we get now. I don't know. It was pretty great though.
Before we get into the movies we've been watching, I've had my wife was out of town for a couple days and she came back and she wasn't feeling well and ended up having to call an ambulance and all that, and that was a whole thing. But she's appears to be doing better, resorting to her stubborn ways and not fully doing bed rest like she's supposed to. I just went out to get a bottle of water and the countertop had been cleaned. And I'd already cleaned the countertop, but I'd left the paper plates out, and those were away. And I'm like, what are you doing, woman? Stop, everything.
She is so hard-headed.
Yeah, it's so frustrating. And I swept, I did the laundry this morning. I am on top of it to make sure she stays in bed.
She do stuff, yeah.
And
way to go, John.
Yeah, I'm trying. It's really hard when someone resists every ounce of help. But
I was surprised that she let you get her some food. I was like, yes, please.
I was too, actually. I was relieved when she asked me. I was like, yes, gladly. We got Sirius XM on a trial kind of thing right now.
Oh, I love Sirius.
And I've been listening to a lot of stand-up on it because there's the comedy channels, and I'm a big stand-up fan, but I don't always take the time to watch the specials right now, especially because I am watching so many movies. And I've come across some really good stand-up comedians who I was familiar with, but I haven't listened to their whole specials before. I'm gonna mess up her name. It's Aparna something. I'm gonna see if I can pull it up. I don't even remember it off the top of my head. I just listened to her album this morning while I was cleaning and stuff, and it is so good. And I think she was on an episode of Douglas Movies. I think that's how I first heard of her. And it's Aparna Nancherla, I think. And her album's just putting it out there, is at least the one I listened to today. And I streamed it on Google Play Music. But I heard a bit of it from SiriusXM, and man, she's super funny and really, really just... Oh, apparently there's a track I didn't finish. I guess there's a encore, which is good to know. But yeah, I just wanted to point that out. She's super, super funny. One of the things that I found, like why Amy Schumer kind of bugs me as a comedian is she always goes for like the sexuality jokes. Like it seems like there's a lot of the more prominent female comedians go that I can think of off the top of my head that I've listened to over the years. They go real extreme into sexuality and like self-deprecating sexuality too. You know, a lot of like bashing of themselves and their body and whatnot. And I have no problem.
We don't need help with that.
Yeah, and I have no problem with a woman like owning her sexuality. Men do it. I'm not judging them. That's not my issue. But Aparna's like just genuine, like a normal person making jokes, and I really liked that. I found it refreshing. I would even say it's a clean album. Like I don't feel like she cursed. She might have cursed a little, but it was definitely not like that wasn't her shtick. You know, it was genuine, just good jokes. A lot of like awkward social anxiety type, relatable for me type humor, and I thought it was great. So just wanted to throw that out there. I'm on the fence about SiriusXM because I do feel like it cuts out more often than I would like it to.
Oh.
Like just weird stints of roads. Like it'll just be like where 30 or 40 seconds where nothing, no signal, and I'm like, what's happening? Like why right here is there no signal? And I don't know. Who knows? Could just be bad luck. But let's get into what we've been watching. Corey, have you seen any movies or TV in the last since we last spoke?
Yeah, because we didn't talk about it on the last top 5. So I rewatched The Descent.
Oh.
I really liked that movie. And then I did that because I hadn't seen it in a long time. I think this was like my 3rd time watching it. And then I watched The Descent 2, which wasn't horrible, but also unnecessary. And then I got to see on the last night it was screening at the Flicks, RBG. And it was so
lucky.
good. It was so good. And I was so pumped the whole time I was watching it. And then when I walked out, and I know a little about Ruth Bader Ginsburg, but I definitely want to read books and things and look more into her, but super good. And then I'm rewatching Penny Dreadful. I think I'm on season 2 now. And then I watched season 4 that just came out of Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt.
Oh, yeah? I'm behind. Oh. I think I only watched season 1. I didn't realize they were already at 4.
It's so dumb. And I think I was like, oh my god, only 6 episodes, but I looked at the other seasons and there were only 6 episodes too. But I love John Hamm. I love him so much, and he's so funny. I just can't handle, like, I'm just dying every time that he's on the screen in that show. It's so ridiculous, but I don't think that he gets enough, recognition for that.
It's funny. He was on Douglas Movies this week. It was actually a really good episode because Bob Saget was on for the first time.
Oh, dang.
And Jeff Tate, who is a comedian who's a regular guest on the show and probably one of the best at the games. And honestly, like whenever Jeff's on, I always love the episodes anyways. But John Hamm's been on several episodes of Douglas Movies over the year, and he's such a down-to-earth sounding guy. Like, I mean, I've never met him in person or anything, but just like on the podcast, because before I heard him on Douglas Movies, and before I'd even seen him anything, I just knew him as Don Draper on Mad Men, and I hadn't watched Mad Men, but I've heard you just hear women talking about how hot he is, and I'm like, okay, another one of those actors. But he's come off as
so talented,
super funny, very diverse in terms of what he can do on screen. And then, like, when you listen to him on the podcast, he's hilarious. Like, he really is just like a normal guy who's got a sense of humor and likes what he does. And like, it's cool because I mean, John Hamm does not need to do Douglas Movies.
No.
Like, the dude's got a solid career going. He doesn't need to go on to promote anything or. But that tells me, 1, he likes to do the show. 2, he's clearly friends with Doug, like that he would keep coming back. And that makes him even cooler to me. And so, like, I think someone in my work meetings mentioned that he was on Kimmy Schmidt, and I've not, again, seen it since season 1, so he was not on it then.
Well, I think that everybody knows the, like, basis of the show. She's a mole woman that was kidnapped and held by a crazy guy who calls himself a reverend. Well, John Hamm is the Reverend, so... And he's one of those people that is, like, so funny and so, like, in it, but I don't know how he doesn't...
Oh, that's right,
he was. Just, yeah, I don't know how he doesn't, like, laugh, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
He just, like, delivers it like it's nothing, and I'm like, oh my god.
God, I forgot he was the Reverend. I saw... Season 1, like, when it first came out, and then I think I tried to watch 2, and there was just... Maybe I did watch 2. I don't know. I can't remember, because there is only 6 episodes. I feel like I watched more than just 6. But I definitely didn't see 3 or 4, which just came out. But Man, and I'm jealous you got to see RGB because I feel like I probably could have got RBG. I feel like I probably could have got a screener of that if I worked a little harder at that, and I haven't. So I still may get to see it, but
so that's all I've been watching that I can remember.
Well, since our last, I haven't watched that much this week because I've been like wrapped up in other things. But I've seen some good stuff, so let's get into that. I got to watch Tootsie, which was highly recommended to us by Jamie Young, who will be on our podcast next week. You'll hear him on the top 5 movies. We talked to him about acting and his experience with Rebel Without a Crew and working with Alejandro, who's been on our show before. And he highly recommended Tootsie. And it was already on my list to watch this summer, but I made it a priority, and I absolutely loved it. Dustin Hoffman is amazing. Bill Murray isn't in the movie a lot, but every time he's on screen, I'm enjoying everything he's doing. I rewatched Game Night because my wife and I rented it on Memorial Day from Redbox, and so she hadn't seen it, and she's a big Jason Bateman fan, so we watched that.
So funny.
It is. I actually laughed more the second time. I don't know why. Maybe because I was at home and I felt like free to laugh, but I really enjoyed it. Watch Brokeback Mountain, which we'll talk about in a little bit. My daughter, as I've mentioned, she's been challenged to watch 30 movies over the course of the summer. So we ended up going to my friend's house and we watched The Matrix 4K Blu-ray that just came out on his nice television and with good surround sound. And I've rewatched that movie. I mean, I can't even tell you how many times, but she really liked it. I think I don't know if she liked it as much as David and I did when we first saw it, but it does hold up. So one of the things though with his TV, it looks so good at times that it kind of wrecks some of the effects, like because it's got like that smoothing and stuff, and it just like you can like see, oh that's CG, oh and that's CG, but not horribly, but I do think it is the TV does that with it's because it's so good. That's the problem. It almost is like looking through a window, like it's like those things look too crisp. And then on Thursday night, the most exciting thing was I got to go see Hereditary. And I did take my daughter, and writer for the show, Big Tuna, who's also part of the Summer Movie Wager, or the Summer Fantasy Draft Wager. He was there too with one of his friends, and I've heard that the friend has had nightmares since he saw it. I don't know if that's just like an hyperbole or if he actually has been having nightmares, but it is it's great. I loved it. My review went up yesterday. It's a lot of words where I don't say a whole lot because it's really hard to talk about the movie itself. I talk about some of the acting and I talk about the cinematography and the lighting and the atmosphere that's created is astounding. But it's hard to talk about the plot at all because there's a lot of stuff that it's interesting because the trailer does a really good job of showing too much but also not giving you a lot of context of what they're showing you, and so I think it works. It's really compelling. Toni Collette is amazing. And I'm hearing it's getting a pretty wide release next week, so
yeah, it comes out the 8th.
Yeah, but that date usually means nothing to me because usually these type of movies it comes out like far away from me, but apparently I'm even hearing that our local theater is getting it, which is surprising. So I'll have to see what happens. I have hopes.
Planning on my friends and I are planning on doing a double feature on the Saturday after of Hereditary and then Won't You Be My Neighbor.
That's a good follow-up. I think it's like a palate cleanser. Because it is haunting. I was a little concerned at the end how my daughter would handle it. She has not expressed any worries or anything, but yeah. And it is one of those movies that has a lot of ways to interpret what some of the things are. So we had a good hour-long ride home talking about the movie, too. So, and that's all I've really got to watch this week. I feel like I should be watching so many more movies, but between working, from 8:30, getting ready and leaving around 8:30, and then being there till about 3:30, and then I got home on Tuesday and did a couple of things and had to record. Wednesday, we got home and we went to the Lakeside Village. It was just me and Taylor, and we went and got dinner and walked around a bit, and then went and watched The Matrix at my friend's house. And then Thursday we had to drive to Altamont to see Won't You Be My Neighbor, where I did get Hereditary. I mixed those up all of a sudden. They could be the same title. I did get the Mr. Rogers Barnes & Noble special exclusive pop vinyl where he's holding the king, so I was excited about that. Couldn't resist snagging that one. And I did buy my daughter the Yes Please, the Amy Poehler book. Yeah,
that didn't that come out like last year or early this year?
I think it's a couple years ago.
Oh, really?
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I feel like it was a couple years ago. And but she's just recently become a huge Leslie Knope fan after finishing Parks and Rec. And I thought, why not push her to read the book? It's a big book for one, and then I think reading autobiographies is not something people often will reach out to do. Well, okay, not something people I know often reach out to do. And but when I read Kevin Smith's, it gave me like a renewed appreciation for Kevin, and reminded me why I liked his movie so much as a kid. And so I'm kind of hoping for that same kind of hero attachment to Amy Poehler, because it's not really I don't think it's a straight up autobiography, because it's in the humor section. It's not in the bio section or whatever. So I'm not 100% sure how it's approached. Like flipping through it, it looks like it's a bit autobiographical, but with a tinge of humor and satire almost to it. And I think with that, Corey, it's time to get into our review of Brokeback Mountain.
Oh gosh, okay.
All right, so Brokeback Mountain was from 2005. It won, well, at least I will find out for sure if it won. Directed by Ang Lee. I'm fairly confident it won something, but has an 87 Metascore, 7.7 IMDb user score. Stars Jake Gyllenhaal, Heath Ledger, Michelle Williams, kind of, Randy Quaid, kind of. It really stars Jake Gyllenhaal and Heath Ledger. Everyone else just plays very supporting roles. They show up in small doses. Anne Hathaway's on that list. And then there's a couple other people. Did you catch Anna Faris for like 30 seconds?
I did, and David Harbour. And
yes.
I don't know if everybody, and they were a couple. I don't know if everyone knows this, but it's one of my lifetime dreams that he and Winona Ryder get married in real life.
Oh, from Stranger Things?
Yes.
And
I don't know if you ever see like their set pictures, but
go ahead. I'm sorry. Linda Cardellini, I'm a fan of from a few things.
From Freaks and Geeks.
Yes, and I didn't realize actually. And then Kate Mara, who is hit or miss for me. I liked her in this though. I actually liked her quite a bit.
Bigger fan of her sister.
Yes, for sure. No offense there, Kate, but you did do the Fantastic Four movie. That was awful. So, where's the stupid thing about awards? All right, I know they won something, and the app is being difficult, but I'm gonna find it. I'm sure it's on here. Oh man, why is it being so difficult? Corey, stall.
I'm looking too. So my problem with Kate, I didn't see the Fantastic Four movie, but I feel like what was that show she was in with the Kevin Spacey, House of Cards? It's just like boobs all the time. I'm like, pretty sure you can.
I doubt she had much control over that.
Well, I know that there are actresses that don't. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, but I think unfortunately the industry is established where like if you're not a certain caliber of actress, that you kind of get pressured into scenes like that. Like look at Game of Thrones season 1, and how often Daenerys is naked, and then watch as the seasons progress that she's not naked anymore, because she now Emilia Clarke. She's become a staple and required character, and I've heard reports that she's like said no more. Like I'm done.
I feel like that goes along with like her rise to power in the show also.
True.
You know, like so I did find it. So for the winner of the Oscars in 2006, they got Best Achievement in Directing, Ang Lee, Best Writing Adapted Screenplay, and Best Achievement in Music Written for Motion Pictures for scores, I believe.
I'm not always good at picking up on score. I didn't notice the score in this that I can remember. Like I don't remember.
No.
And that's not to say it's not good. I think that's one of my gaps when I watch movies. I don't always pay attention to the music because I feel like in my head I'm watching it holistically, and a good score just establishes the tone and the mood, and I'm not really paying attention to it. You know what I mean? Like I'm so focused on what it's doing, it's crafting the atmosphere, that I'm not acknowledging it as a standalone element. And so I think that's probably a good sign that I didn't notice it. Sometimes I'll notice it and I'll just be like, wow, I really like this. And other times I'll notice it and I won't like it. Like It Follows, which I am in the minority. Most people love the score for that movie. It did not work for me. My dog is barking again. But this was a movie that I mentioned on the last episode that I had avoided because of my immaturity when it came out. In 2005, I could not handle the idea of two male actors kissing and who knew what else. And I am ashamed to admit that, and yet proud now that I can, that I've moved past that fear or whatever it was, and that I can now, easily watch something like this and not be worried about, like, does it mean I'm gay because I'm watching people who are gay, or, and again, I don't feel like I ever really thought that, but it was that stigma that if I did watch it, people would give me crap about being gay. And especially some of my friends who maybe don't necessarily think that way, but that was just how it was because we were from the 90s and we did stupid crap like that. So I regret now having watched this, not watching it earlier, partly because I was really under the impression that I knew how the movie played out, and I had no idea how this movie played out. Like, the first quarter of the movie, not even quarter, like, them on Brokeback Mountain the first time, and them, like, finding out that they have feelings for each other, I thought was the whole movie. Like, I thought that was going to be the whole film, was that them on the mountain, them finding out that they have feelings for each other, and then finally, like, acting on those feelings. And that's not what this movie was at all.
I watched this so long ago. Oh, heck. I think that I'm trying to remember. I remember the house I lived in. I remember everything, but I don't remember how long ago it was when I saw it. I think it might not have been, well, it couldn't have been long after it came out for, like, home viewing, actually. I don't know. I had my personal things against it, too, and I don't really want to talk about it. But, so going in with those kinds of views when you're initially watching something, you know, can make it hard to enjoy it or to, like, take it for what it is and not have all these negative, you know what I mean? Not to, like, see what it really is without everything that you come in thinking about it ruining it.
Yeah. What, you did rewatch it, so how did that experience go this time?
I didn't remember much of the ending. Actually, now that I think about it, I was so mad I don't think I watched the whole thing. So I tried not to go in with those negative whatever this time. That made it a little better. But I still just have a hard time with this movie.
Well,
and I'm obviously in the minority.
Well, yeah, and I mean, I'm hoping that maybe in spoilers you tell us why you have a hard time with it. But there are definitely things that I don't know. I'll say the first part of the movie, like maybe the first 40 minutes, maybe hour even, because it is a longer movie. It's 2 hours and 15 minutes, I think. And I wasn't sure if I was like on board, and by the end though I was moved by a lot of what happens in the movie, so that kind of leads us to needing to get to spoilers. But I enjoyed it. I definitely think it is a good film. I think there's some amazing performances. Heath Ledger is so transformative from every role I've seen him play. You know, like, he's almost not the same guy. Like, the voice he's using in this movie is like unrecognizable to me as Heath Ledger, you know? And that just it makes me even more sad that he had such a short life. Obviously there's many reasons why it's sad someone dies young, but like, he's clearly an expert at his craft, and that we didn't get to see him
what he could have brought to it.
Yeah, just continue. I mean, he brought so much,
even more. Yeah,
in such a short time. But
I think he would have been one of those actors that would have been interesting to like watch over there, you know, to see over a long line of work and see, you know, how they transformed. Or
almost like, I don't know if this is too kind, but like Daniel Day-Lewis to that degree of quality, you know, where you're just like, what is he gonna do this time, you know? Like, and he is supposed to have been a little bit method like Daniel Day-Lewis, but I was so like kind of thrown off because like Jake Gyllenhaal feels like Jake Gyllenhaal in this movie, and I like Jake Gyllenhaal, so I have no issue with that. But then like Heath Ledger, I'm like, is that Heath Ledger? Like, it does not sound like Heath Ledger. And some of the like hair choices they do later in the movie, because they age a lot in this film, I don't really like some of the styles that they go with. And
you
some
love
of
the sideburns.
Yeah, but some of the sideburns look so fake to me. Like,
I agree.
But yeah, great cast. Michelle Williams she's super young, like, especially when you think it's only like 13 years ago, and like Manchester, she looks like a different person to me. Which she's supposed to. I mean, she's been through a heck of a lot in Manchester by the Sea. But just seeing her in like 2005, she looks so much younger to me. And then again, you have those other great performances, and it's a solid film. It's definitely one of my favorite Ang Lee films. His movies have been hit or miss for me. I liked Life of Pi. I hated Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk. Thought that movie was awful. I hated The Hulk, and I loved Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon, which I'm pretty sure is his. So he's been up and down, and this was definitely an up. So all right, I think, Corey, spoilers?
Guys, you can go watch. You'll have to rent it actually or buy it. But Brokeback Mountain, from here forward, we're going to be giving spoilers and talking about the movie in great detail. You've been warned.
So the movie spans roughly 20 years. It starts in 1963, and by the end, Ennis's oldest daughter, played by Kate Mara as the 19-year-old version of the daughter, Well, she's 19, so you approximate 20 years. So 1983 is when it ends, and you have two cowboys, I guess is the term. Like they
ranch hands.
Ranch hands. One's a rodeo guy too, though. So like, cowboy feels right. They meet each other working on a mountain, herding sheep over the summer, and like letting them, I guess, like free range. I don't really know much about this, and this is in the 60s, so I really know nothing about this. I don't know if this is still like the way the sheep are herded and whatnot. But they have to spend the summer with these sheep, and there's like, one has a base camp, the other one sleeps with the sheep to protect them from coyotes and things like that. And they end up getting drunk one night, and the Heath Ledger's character Ennis is supposed to go out and sleep with the sheep, and he's too drunk, so he sleeps at the campfire, but the fire goes out, so he gets cold. Jake Gyllenhaal brings him into the tent, and one thing leads to another, and they have a very kind of violent, passionate sexual escapade. To me, it's violent. I don't know, because like it doesn't seem loving. Like he like aggressively slams him down and pulls his pants down, and it's just like, okay, yeah, I guess this is happening. And it does seem to kind of come out of nowhere. Is that one of your issues?
Exactly. I totally agree. I mean, I wouldn't approach anyone for, a sexual encounter without knowing for sure. But, I don't know. I would, you know what I mean? I felt like it was kind of out of nowhere. I didn't feel like there was really any attraction, you know what I mean? Like, yeah. Illustrated for us there.
I think there's a little, but it's definitely downplayed as just like general curiosity about like who is this guy that I'm with and who is this other guy that I'm with, and like there's looks and there's glances, but there's definitely no conversation. And we've already heard Ennis say he's going to be getting married when he gets off the mountain. And Jack, which is Jake Gyllenhaal's character, is a rodeo guy, and I'm pretty sure that Ennis says, "My dad said all rodeo people were gay," or something like that.
Oh, I don't remember that.
It was like a real throwaway line while they were at the campfire, and Ennis has that kind of like grumbly, like mumbly voice, you know what I'm saying? Like where he's not really saying much, but he's like, oh.
Probably had chewing tobacco in his mouth, I mean, sorry.
Could be. And
I've never been to a rodeo or anything, but while we were sitting to see RBG, they had that trailer for, I think it's called The Rider or something.
Oh yeah.
The guy, and I just, like those people get beat up to heck.
They do.
And I didn't really, I mean, I know it's not a safe job, and I know that there's, they don't get paid like professional football players though, guys. I wouldn't assume, but yeah, that's kind of nuts. I do think something interesting about this movie is that in the beginning, neither of them have a lot of economic resources, you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it's kind of hard for them in this time period, and with that also to have any privacy.
True.
Like taking what they can get. And I mean, I also think that it's interesting throughout the film that people know but don't make it as big of a deal or try to slander them as much as they could, or that I think that they would. Mm-hmm. I was kind of surprised at that too. I mean, I don't know, maybe everybody wouldn't make a big deal, but I feel like somebody would have.
Well, and so my thought with them the first time they have sex is that it is like drunken lowering of inhibitions, where maybe they were both curious, and it's kind of implied that Jack's done this before, but not for sure. And it's been a few weeks since they've been out there, so they're pent up. They haven't had any release, which doesn't necessarily mean anything, but like there's definitely that was the night they've had the most fun together. It may not be love yet, it may just be need, desire, but I think love comes from that. I think that's the spark that ignites the fire in them, and that becomes blatantly clear as the movie goes on, and that's where I did connect. I didn't connect initially, and when that happened, I was like, wow, okay. And to be fair, that's not me. I'm not a type of person who will meet somebody and just like jump right to that. And I know they didn't just meet, but still, like they hadn't spoke a whole lot at the time they've been together, and they hadn't been on a date or anything. You know what I mean? Like that's me.
Yeah.
That's not gonna be the first thing that starts our relationship. That's not the type of person I've ever been. But as the movie goes on, I totally buy into the story. Like, these two guys clearly love each other, want to be together, but Ennis is so afraid of the cultural stigma The story, the probably the most horrifying part of this movie is when he tells the story of his dad taking him and his brother as young kids to see the hate crime that transpired, where a man who had been found as gay. I don't remember exactly how they found. I think he was openly gay. Or they two men bought a ranch together. I think even it wasn't even that they were openly gay. It was just two men bought a ranch together, and the assumption was made that they were gay, and they killed him, beat him to death, dragged him around by his penis until it was ripped off, and then the body was left for dead, left to rot in the sun. And the dad took his children to see it. And
he was
Ennis,
9. Yeah,
and Ennis even alludes to the idea that it's possible his dad was a part of it. He wasn't sure, but he knew where the body was, and he seemed content on scarring this image into his son's brains to make sure they wouldn't be quote-unquote queer. And that was a horrifying and haunting story, and it totally explains why Ennis is so afraid of being who he is, because even after they have their first encounter, he says, "I ain't queer," and Jack responds, "Neither am I." But it's clearly that they love each other, or at least they will, and they're just too afraid of the consequences, or especially Ennis. Ennis is definitively more afraid of the consequences than Jack.
I feel like I can't really comment on that without jumping to the end.
Well, we can jump to the end. So, go ahead.
I am a little mad with Ennis, the whole movie, because Jack always comes to him, and I know that he has more, he has more money, he's married well, and all these things, but Jack always has to go to him, and he never seems completely, I don't know how to say it, committed or completely invested. He always seems like an arm's length away. He doesn't always seem there. But I think I mean, when we get to the end, you find that that's kind of his, self-preservation, and that him not living in the open and not being open about it and not talking about it, he ends up being the one that's alive and
alone, though, and miserable in a lot of ways. And the part where he goes to one, he finds out that Jack is dead and calls Anne Hathaway, and Anne Hathaway tells him that he died in a freak car accident. Go ahead.
Does it seem to you that that's when she's realizing what kind of relationship they really had? Because then she starts tearing up and stuff when she's talking about it.
Well, okay, so the scene cross-cuts with assuming what actually happened, which is that he was, I think it's implied, we learn there's a lot of, I'm jumping ahead to pull information to make sense of that moment, but the dad tells us, Jack's dad tells us, Mr. Twist, that Jack told him that he was going to be moving a man different than Ennis to the family ranch, and that they were going to run the ranch together. And I feel like that's most likely David Harbour's character, because when we meet Anna Faris and David Harbour basically tells Jack that he's gay, that we should get a cabin together, and it's very much sounds like the same setup that he had with Ennis. We're both married, but we'll meet up to go quote unquote fishing, which is apparently the
60s
wrong
word.
It's a way of getting out of town long and far away from civilization so that you won't be judged for the things you're doing. And my guess is that Jack was ready to come out, and the people in his area, which he lives in Texas at the time, appear to kill him based on what we see in the cross-cutting. And so I kind of wonder if Anne Hathaway, or at least her father, who always hated Jack anyways, was involved in some degree,
You really think that she would have something to do with it?
Maybe not entirely, but he's gonna have to divorce her, right? She can assume that if maybe she found out his fishing trips with this guy became the relationship, because now he's ready to be open about it, and then for 20 years or 10 years, 15 years of their life, he's been going on fishing trips with a guy named Ennis she's never met. So he's been cheating on her for 20 years. And so maybe she doesn't look to kill him, but she tells her father. And her father, no way you're going to dishonor my family and do that to my wife and be gay on top of that, in a time where that was definitely not accepted. I mean, it's just accepted now, and I would say it's still not.
Still
by
kind
many.
of not.
Yeah, but it's much more open now than it was, especially in the 80s. So there's no indication that that's true, but just maybe the crying was her admitting that yes, she's obviously aware of what the relationship is. And I don't feel like Anne Hathaway indicated that she would do such a horrible thing, but think about when Michelle Williams saw them kissing, how she stayed with him for like a good while and finally divorced him. But like it took a lot for her to finally walk away after seeing them kiss and like living with that secret and not even really confronting him for a while, you know. Even after she didn't confront him about it for like a good year or two after the divorce when they were having that Thanksgiving dinner.
Oh, I felt like it was longer than that because the girls looked older.
That's right. Yeah, you're right. It's probably 7 years or something like that, because I think there's 3 ages of the girls. So still, though, like she took a long time before she even confronted Ennis about it. And he obviously got really mad. I was very shocked at how he grabbed her and like manhandled her. But you know, so when he hears that, and then the part that really broke me was when he went to Jack's parents' ranch. And the dad seems accepting of it, but still not okay with it. You know, like he wasn't happy, but he also wasn't like, he's not my son. You know, like there was
or leave my house.
Yeah, but the mother was so kind and so like, I wish my son had been able to be happy.
And go ahead.
No, please.
Trying to also give Ennis some closure.
Yeah,
I felt
for sure. And him finding the shirts from when they got into a fight on the mountain, which when they go back from the mountain and they're about to separate, he goes, I think I left my shirt on the mountain. So finding it in Jack's closet was crushing to him because he didn't leave the shirt on the mountain. Jack took the shirt as a memento of their time together and had kept it in the closet, which of course isn't, you could argue is probably a metaphor as well, that their relationship was in the closet and here were their shirts, still matted with blood from the fight they had when they were leaving the mountain, you know. And it was like the fight even was so symbolic of their whole relationship because there was so much love and passion, yet it was covered with like resentment and fear and anger, and not because of each other even, but because of what their relationship would mean to their lives, like that they would be in danger, they would have a target on their back, and that's where I was 100% in on the movie, was the end. I was, it's such a shock. I didn't know that Jack would die. And that you would see how much regret poured over Ennis. And I love when Kate Mara comes to tell him she's getting married. And at first it seems like he is not going to attend the wedding, but then says, like, I guess I'll have to find a new job. Where he's like, I'm not going to regret not being with my daughter. You know, I'm going to do what I need to do to be a better person, I think, is like what we're supposed to take from that. Like he's learned from his 20-year hidden relationship with the man of his soulmate, you know, the man he loved, and is going to be a different person moving forward. So much silence. So what don't you like, Corey?
It's too long.
It is a little long.
It's too long. Like, I feel like they just rehash the same things over and over and over again. And it's like, we get it. It's over a long period of time. They have to sneak away. You know, like, we get that. You know, we could have cut out a lot of that. And I just don't feel like... It's probably more, because I did notice it more with Jake Gyllenhaal in the character, that they're wearing these clothes and he's wearing this big cowboy hat, but I'm just not really buying in. You know what I mean? Okay. There's one part where he's like standing by the truck and it's like either right before or right after he's like, I can't quit you. And I'm just like, you know, I'm just not buying him as a cowboy.
Well, and I think that's part of the stereotype, though, that we have in our brains of cowboys and also of gay men, right? Like, when people think of gay men, especially in the 90s and even in the 80s, it was always effeminate men, right? It was always men who were more like women. And that's what, like, I think when people think, I think people who aren't educated on the fact that homosexuality is not personality, that is a who you're attracted to thing, we have that stigma of it being these effeminate males who are blatantly, clearly gay because they act like women, they behave like women, they, you know, and here cowboys are like the total opposite of that, right? Cowboys are the rough, tough, and they don't take any crap from anybody. And you have them, I think that's part of the inner conflict too, is that they don't feel like they meet the stereotype of a gay man at that time, and that they're at odds with themselves. They're two personalities, and even, I mean, I think you could argue if Jake Gyllenhaal was talking to a woman and said, "I can't quit you," you would probably feel like that's out of place even there too, because I don't know that cowboys have ever been portrayed as sentimental in movies. Like, they're usually, the women are like longing for the cowboy, not the cowboy longing for the woman. At least not in that kind of romantic way, because "I can't quit you" is a romantic line of, like, our relationship does not work because you're not willing to let it work. Yet I keep coming back time and time again. I keep letting this be my life, even though I'm unhappy, even though I hate how this is a secret and hidden. And I don't know, I didn't feel that way, but I do understand where you're coming from, and I do think, even as a cowboy, I don't know if I buy Jake Gyllenhaal as a cowboy.
That was the thing. I just felt like, and I like him a lot as an actor. Like, I will see movies because he's in it. You know what I mean? Not always, but
Yeah.
he can be a drawing factor for me.
Me too.
But I just couldn't, I don't know. It just wasn't very convincing. I don't know.
But I do think that's, again, our stereotypes of what cowboys should be in movies, and he isn't, because one, it's not even, like, it's not the West. It's not like, you know, a 1980s set Western. Like, this is in middle of now. It's 1960s. Cowboys are more of, even, they're already fading from film at that point. Like, it is, it's more of, you know, just, he lives in the Midwest. He's a product of his upbringing. You know, they work on ranches, so they wear cowboy hats. But he has his own interests. He has his own personality. I can see it in some ways. But like, I know we have like a really strong ag program at our school, and the people that are a part of it and are several of them actually do participate in like rodeos and stuff. Not all of them meet what my expectation would be of someone who is interested in that. And again, I'm aware that that's a stereotype, so I don't like put that on the kids, but I'm always like, oh, you're into that? Like, 'cause that's not something I've ever been into. Like, the idea of like going to a rodeo even is so alien to me.
Yeah.
And I don't dislike Westerns as a genre, but they're not my go-to genre either. Like, there's some I really love, there's some I've been bored by, and there's some I avoid even, but I wasn't as thrown off by it, but I definitely can see where you're coming from with that, because it does, and I think that's maybe what Ang Lee's going for too, is that juxtaposition of these are supposed to be the manly men, and now they're fighting this idea of what a homosexual is, which they're, you know, even afraid to admit. Like, they never fully say what their relationship is, or they don't say I'm gay, or you know, that's never uttered in the film. It's actually almost anything that's mentioned with those words is derogatory. Even you know, I'm not a queer, like, it's never accepting, like verbally accepting who they are, and it's sad. And I think that's where a lot of the sadness too comes at the end, is like, I feel horrible that people couldn't be who they were, you know. And I hold that now too. Like, if there's people, for whatever reason, if they feel like they can't express their true nature because of fear of being killed or beaten, that's sad, you know.
Or even disowned sometimes, because,
yeah, as simple as that,
you know,
right?
I mean that is not the same as being murdered, but,
No, but
going through your whole life and being attached to these people and your family, and then being cast out because you aren't what they think you should be, and you don't have that community, or, you know what I mean?
Well, if you grow up with like strong family values, and that you're supposed to you can always rely on your blood, they're always going to be there for you, and then suddenly, because of a life choice, what isn't even a choice, but what, you know, I think that's the phrasing that would have been used, is you've chosen this life, now you don't get to have us. Like, well, one, I think we've come a long way. We understand that being gay is not a choice.
I don't think that the whole populace gets that, but
Yeah, well, again, and that's where the phrase comes from, right? It's like, oh, well, you made this life choice, now you don't get to be a part of our family. It's like, well, that's not fair. Like, there was no caveats when you said, you know, blood is thicker than water, when you said family's the most important thing. You didn't give me those, like, that.
Strict.
It was under, as long as you meet what I deem as a normal person. And it's such a tragedy. I think that's the biggest heartbreak of the film, is that you see all of the regret Ennis felt at the end. I feel like I felt with him. I was very empathetic to him at the end, and I blame him, but I sympathize with where he's coming from. Like,
because I can just imagine them living in a little house and their house being caught on fire, or, you know, like, it doesn't seem like there are any consequences. It doesn't even seem like they tried to, go after the people for the first murder.
Oh, yeah.
And he does say that about his dad, and I could just see if he wasn't so reserved and so quiet about it.
Yeah, and it's hard to, like, put your life at risk, risk what you love. Like, well, that's a lot. And I'm sure there's a part of him that we see with the words again of "I'm not queer" that hates that he feels the way he feels. Like, he doesn't want to feel that way, but does, and he doesn't know how to reconcile that. And that's a big struggle too. Like, the movie does a lot in that way, and Ledger does a lot to really show the anguish. I think even his quiet nature is reflective of that. That he is self-loathing in all those moments. He is never okay. And I think that at the end, when he commits to his daughter's wedding, and I feel like he's trying to at least find some areas where he can be okay with himself. Maybe he still won't come out. Maybe he'll still keep that a secret. But I think he's starting to feel the need to be okay with who he is, which had been his biggest struggle. And that's really the biggest conflict with him and Jack, is Jack's willing to risk everything for him, and Ennis is not willing to risk anything for Jack. And I mean, he does. I guess it's not fair to say he doesn't risk anything, because even when Jack shows up after the 3 years or so, and he kisses him immediately. Jack was so taken aback by that, because I don't think Jack knew what to expect when he sent the postcard, and then they decided to meet up. I don't think he knew how Ennis was going to be, and then Ennis just mauling him. I think shocked both of them. I don't know what that sound was. Are you still there?
Yeah.
That was a weird noise, but. I think I am ready to give my rating. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
Yeah, my next cat, I'm going to name it Corey Jr. Sorry, that was so hokey.
Oh, yeah.
Alma Jr.
Alma Jr. I was a little shocked. I don't know that I've ever heard a female character have a junior name.
I've never. And I'm going to bring up, oh God, what's the name of the movie? There's a Molly Ringwald movie that I loved, where she's a teenage. She ends up getting pregnant while she's in high school, and they're talking about the name of the baby, and they're like, oh, well, you could name it such and such Junior, and she's like, there isn't an equivalent for that for women and their daughters. We just get our mom's middle names, but yeah.
That is interesting. I'm gonna say Brokeback Mountain is a must see. It has a lot. I think it's done fairly tastefully. There are even if you are still uncomfortable with homosexuality, which I hope that you can get past that, listeners. But if for some reason you are, I would say it's done in a way that it's gonna push your comfort levels if you are uncomfortable with that, but not as much as Call Me by Your Name did from last year. I feel like there's a few scenes in that movie where they go a little farther with the content, but I thought there's a lot here. I do agree it could have been a little shorter. I think they could have trimmed some scenes out and it would have been just as powerful. But I was moved at the end, so
same. I'll give it that. And here I am. I like the movie more now that we've talked about it, but I still just don't think I could rewatch this movie for probably 10 years. I'm gonna go with...
It's okay.
I'm gonna go with... It's so hard because I always find things in both of our ratings that appeal, I'm gonna start making my own ratings.
Okay.
I'm stuck between A Decent Watch and Not Quite Golden Pony Boy.
That's it. Then, this is maybe you need to be like Ennis and only visit this relationship every few years. So, but our next episode, while we continue with our theme of LBGTQ plus for the month of June, we'll be watching the film Milk, which I know Sean Penn is in, and that's all I have in front of me at the moment. But that Corey said is available to stream on Netflix. So. If you want to reach out and watch that that movie before we record our episode, did Josh Brolin's name? Oh, sweet, Josh Brolin's in this. I'm sold. Milk stars Sean Penn, Josh Brolin, Emile Hirsch, Diego Luna, James Franco, less in, Allison Pill, Victor Garber, and that's where I stopped recognizing people. Gus Van Sant is the director, written by Dustin Lance Black. And accordingly, this is on Netflix. Another over 2-hour movie, though.
I need to pay better attention to that.
Well, no, it's the themes that we, sometimes dramas need a little more time to say what they got to say, and other times it's just not edited well. But if you'd like to reach out to us and tell us your thoughts, you can email us at contact@burkreviews.com. That is contact@burkreviews.com. Corey? until how can they find you on social media? I almost forgot that again.
I know. Corey R. Star. 2 R's on the end.
And you can follow me at Burke Reviews, like on Twitter, Instagram, etc. Until next time, folks, Corey, thank you, and keep watching movies.
This has been a Burke Reviews podcast. BurkeReviews.com.